Hello and welcome to Thought for February the 24th. Our readings are Exodus chapter 37, Psalms 96, 97, 98 and 99, and 1 Corinthians chapter 7. And our thought is to secure your undivided devotion to the Lord. Today's chapter in Paul's letter to the Corinthians gives his views about specific situations occurring there. However, it contains principles which apply to believers of all ages. He is responding to matters about which you wrote, 1 Corinthians 7 verse 1, and his words are like hearing one side of a conversation. Corinth was a very immoral city, and its idolatry and fleshly living created many problems and has many parallels with today. The believers had been actively part of all of this until they committed themselves to follow the way of Christ. They are commanded to be faithful in their marriages, to avoid divorce, and to be content with their situation in life, even if they were still slaves. Verse 20 and 21. I want you to be free from anxieties, he writes, to promote good order and to secure your undivided devotion to the Lord. Verse 35. Maintaining marriage relationships are most important, says Paul, and he makes the point, because of temptations to sexual immorality, each man should have his own wife, and each woman her own husband. Do not deprive one another, except perhaps by agreement for a limited time, that you may devote yourselves to prayer. But then come together again so that Satan may not tempt you because of your lack of self-control. Verses 2 and verse 5. And this reference to a Satan is to human tempters, just as at one stage Peter was a Satan to Jesus, as we read earlier this month in Mark chapter 8, verse 33. At that stage, Peter's attitude was all wrong. In a similar way, many of the converts in Corinth would have contact with individuals whose values were all wrong and could prompt ungodly thoughts in them. And so it is with us today, indeed more and more. And we have to say, at least in thought, get behind me, Satan. Today some criticise Paul, suggesting he is against marriage, even a woman hater, and this is most unfair. He writes, I wish that all were as I am myself. But each has his own gift from God, one of one kind, one of another. It is better to marry than to be aflame with passion. Verses 7 and verse 9. There were problems because some who had accepted Christ were married to unbelieving partners. The believer should not seek a divorce, we're told, and the believer should seek to influence the unbeliever to accept Christ. But if the unbelieving partner separates, let it be so. Verse 15, writes Paul. Now Paul sensed that Corinth was facing an imminent crisis, just as we sense that this world is heading downhill with increasing rapidity. And for that reason, there are many points in this chapter which have special relevance to today, and the need for us all to secure our undivided devotion to the Lord. Well, thank you once again for joining us for Thought for the Day, where together we can open up the pages of God's Word, knowing that Word to be a lamp to our feet and a light to our path.